We're so excited to be here with the Breaking Bread, Breaking Barriers dinner at Norris Square. My name is Jennifer Quinn Mahar. I'm a senior director at the Fairmount Park Conservancy. We're a nonprofit that works in the park system all throughout Philadelphia, and one of our signature programs is our park stewardship program, of which the Friends of Norris are one of over 100 park friends groups that help steward, take care of our parks, do programs and events, and ensure that our parks are the best spaces that they can be. So I would love for both of you to introduce yourselves, say, how long you've been in the neighborhood, and if you are part of the Friends group, or I'm just meeting you for the first time. So what brought you here tonight, and where you're from?
Sure. My name is Josh Warner. I have lived in this neighborhood for about a year and 1 month. Mm-hmm. I spent 15 years in Center City before that and moved here. I wanted to be more involved, and one day at the coffee shop I saw a flyer for the Friends of North Square Park meeting, and I came that night to the meeting, and here I am today.
That's great. That's how we hook you.
My name is Mauricio Munoz. I'm 17. I grew up in this neighborhood. I've been living here for about 9 to 10 years.
Wow.
I come to this church, and Pastor Adon invited me to be part of the community meeting, so here I am.
Wonderful, wonderful, welcome. And Mauricio, do you use Norris Square Park?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of like a main place where people just hang out, and also, you have to cross it to go. Anywhere in this neighborhood. So, yeah.
That's great. And Josh, what drew you to the Friends group and wanting to be involved specifically in the park?
I first walked through the park in 2012 on my way to a different community thing, and I saw the scale and grandness of it. And there's a little bit of disrepair and stuff, but it's well used. It's just a nice looking, nicely framed park. And so when I wanted to move to this neighborhood, I specifically wanted to be as close to the park as possible. I moved last fall, and by the time winter rolled around, there wasn't much kind of civic activity. But when I saw that flyer, I really jumped on it because I wanted to be involved, and I wanted to get to know the neighborhood. I'm new here. I don't know people.
That's great.
So that's a great way to meet folks that are doing good stuff.
Sure. One of the goals of Breaking Bread, Breaking Barriers is to connect community members. Did either of you meet anybody that you've never met before, or had maybe a conversation you didn't expect to have at the dinner tonight?
Yeah, I met a lot of people here, including in the first meeting. There was a lot of people that aren't from this neighborhood, mm-hmm. but they're still interested in how this community acts like a community. So that was pretty fun.
As a somewhat new resident, have you met anybody new through the Breaking Bread dinners?
Oh, yes, tons of folks. But the most fun thing is the people that I kind of know or have met a little bit at church service or in the park or at a cleanup, but having the opportunity to sit down 30 minutes, 45 minutes and actually know where they're coming from, some of their background, the stories. And like Mauricio said, you start to notice more and more overlaps and stuff between folks. Yeah.
Sure. I imagine you're in the neighborhood, you're walking through the park, or you run into somebody on the corner, you say hi, but then actually have an hour and a half to actually have a meal together. Right. Makes you get to know your neighbors more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you at your tables talk about any of the kind of critical issues in the community related to the park? Things that maybe aren't going so well, and maybe some ideas on how to solve them together?
We didn't, at our particular table, we didn't talk about kind of park issues. We talked about, I guess, personal relationships through the park or around the park. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about how it's easy to have kind of barriers around that, but also there's ways to overcome those barriers and say hi or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what did you learn, Mauricio?
Basically the same thing that he did. We were in the same table, so the issues weren't really critical. We just got to know each other more, and we just experienced, or we said our experiences of this community and the park, and how we have helped and how it has affected us over the years and stuff.
That's amazing.
One of the one of the more positive things that came up both the last dinner and this dinner was, almost like neighborhood culture or values in a way. There was one gentleman at our table that was from South Philly, and he'd been there 5 years already, and only now is he kind of like getting to that like place where like his neighbors know him and he knows his neighbors and they're kind of tight like that. Whereas like within months, like that happened to me here, even though I don't, Spanish isn't my primary language, or I know a little bit, but not a whole bunch.
Okay.
And I think I could have come here not knowing what the fabric was and trying to play it safe and then missed out on a whole lot of opportunities just by not saying hi. But instead, I was in the mindset of saying hi, but the whole dang neighborhood was too. Like,
oh, wow.
And being from Center City, like most people are a little distant there. It's kind of like annoying after a while.
Sure.
And here, I mean, everybody's like, when you say hi, they're right there, talking to you in Spanish or English, and here's what's going on over here.
Yeah. I mean, do you see the park as sort of a place where you do run in, you said you have to kind of cross through it to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Is that a place where you're saying hi to your neighbors? Do you feel like now that you've met a couple people through breaking bread, do you think, next time you're walking through the park, you can kind of pick up on those conversations and continue the conversations you've had tonight?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this community is full of Latinos and Hispanics. So our culture is like being outdoors and being around people. And I guess that's what really brings the park to life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
awesome.
I've done so many things in that park in just a year. Like I've had festivals there. I've had hot dogs there. I've heard loud music. I've heard firecrackers. I've set off firecrackers. I've played my drums. I've had like
Oh my gosh.
concerts and a film screening in the park that one night. And yeah, I mean it's just great. It's really great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we kind of preach to the church that the public space belongs to everyone, and that's where you're there with your friends, with your family, with your community members, with your churches, with your local businesses. It's sort of the common place, right? For everyone to gather. What was your highlight of tonight's menu?
The dessert was really
The dessert.
Yeah, that was something.
Yeah, beans and rice. I had like double
Really? Okay.
extras of the beans and rice. Yeah. The tabbouleh was good too.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you feel like the food really kind of helped the conversation flow naturally? It's something about like having a meal together really helps break down those barriers that with people that could be complete strangers.
Yeah, absolutely. You're literally tasting the same thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you might have like different background, different approach to it, or never seen it before, and a little nervous when someone's like, "No, it's gonna be good."
just try it.
Yeah.
Do you have a highlight of the conversation tonight? Something that came up that maybe you didn't expect, or a funny experience, or a touching story?
I guess it would have to be the story that John said, the guy from South Philly, because it was really interesting on how his experience in the same city was different from our experience in this community. How he it took him years for him and his neighborhood, or for him and his neighbors to really get to know each other, and for us in this community it takes like maybe a month at most.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really great. Yeah.
It sounds like the neighborhood's particularly special. It sounds like maybe we need to do a breaking bread down in John's neighborhood so he gets to meet some more neighbors.
Literally,
Yeah.
Critical one.
Any takeaways from tonight's dinner and from the dinner before that might change how you think about your community interactions, or somebody you might not know? It sounds like you guys kind of know everybody in the neighborhood already, but anything you've learned that's changed your way of thinking about how you approach neighbors or people you don't know?
Yeah, and this Anuj kind of like mentioned this in the preamble before the dinner, but we have so much more in common. Despite language, culture, age, whatever, we have so much more in common than all the dividing lines or all the assumptions or all the that prove otherwise. So the fact that everybody could sit down, have a conversation that built on itself, enjoy food and experience something together, bond over that, and then leave tighter and closer with their friends and neighbors than before. Yeah, it speaks to like the human spirit, which is everywhere. If we just allow it to happen, give it the space and like the venues to kind of like to make that happen.
I forgot what I was gonna say, but
I know that was
Yeah.
so well done. So well said.
yeah, I completely agree. Definitely.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much. Is there anything you want to share before we wrap it up? Do you have any? How are you thinking about your third dinner and how to use it as a catalyst for the community?
Yeah, since we have the opportunity with the third dinner, I think we should just fly with the community theme, whether it's, because we're talking about like park updates and playground, like redoing the playground in the park. It'd be interesting to have a dinner over ideas about that, or
Sure.
perhaps with the city too. Other festivals, other artistic community things, like merging the dinner with something really kind of like forward thinking about the park, I think would be a good
Okay.
chance. Yeah.
Yeah, going through a redesign, a lot of conflict can come up in redesign, so hopefully this will help kind of build a base for how folks connect with each other, communicate with each other, and all hopefully work towards a common goal.
Yeah. Right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you
And one thing.
Oh, please,
Sorry.
please.
These kind of like dinners. I mean, I wish I could go to the other ones in the other neighborhoods. They're really important and they're really special. And the more funding, the more partners, the more communities do it themselves, I think the better the city will be.
That's wonderful. So a breaking bread in every neighborhood
Yeah,
park?
why not? Why not?
150 breaking bread dinners? Whew.
Perhaps not us each time, but
That's wonderful. Yeah, well, maybe certainly take the lessons that we've learned from this round and see how we might be able to offer this experience to our broader Park Friends network, which is citywide.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of Breaking Bread, Breaking Barriers. Thank you for recruiting all the folks that came out tonight, and especially to Mauricio, too, for coming out on a school night and spending some extra time with us. Thank you so much.
Yep,
I hope you'll come to the cleanup on the 19th.
Absolutely.
And then the special event on Halloween and Love Your Park in November. Young and bring friends.
Yes. We shall.
Awesome. All right. Thank you
Thank you.
guys so much.